my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Hannah Needs to Yell, and today I need to yell about James Charles just being at it again.
And as you can see, I'm also at it again, in a new way, which will hopefully be more conducive to my mental health, which is still a work in progress, but more on that another time. So the plan is, moving forward, I'll be doing a combination of streaming and videos on this channel. I want to live stream to YouTube and Twitch once or twice per week, mostly to talk about stories that are happening, but also sometimes to do research, like research streams. I thought that would be fun. And even play games. I'm currently working on Breath of the Wild, and my poor hand-eye coordination is making that a real trip. So people who like watching streams and joining a long conversation with multiple topics are welcome to join me for those. But people who don't have that kind of time, and I understand, and who need a quicker, more edited version of those conversations can watch my videos that will be edited out of the streams and published a few days later. That's what this video is, an edited segment from a live stream that I did on Monday. The full version of the stream is still staying live on my channel, and it includes some mental health updates at the end, and possibly some footage of my cat Jupiter getting petted. I'm not making any promises, but all I'm saying is that someone left a very suspicious timestamp in my comments section of that stream. I hope you enjoy this new format that I want to do on my channel. It feels more manageable to me since streaming about stories as they happen is less taxing to me than waiting to make my big long videos afterward. But I'm also open to opinions and critiques in the comments. I want to know the best way to move forward with my channel, so please let me know your thoughts on this whole plan. And speaking of my channel, thank you so much to all of you who took care of my channel while I was gone, watching my content and leaving comments and likes, letting me know that you were there for me while I was on my break taking care of my brain. I am truly so humbled by the great care that this little community has offered me. I am taking care of myself, and while I'm still on a journey that is longer than I expected it was going to be honest, I am getting better, slowly but surely. You see this? You see this? This is about to be me when I'm done with all my sleep studies and stuff. This is about to be me all the freaking time, man. All the time, just resting. Feeling good. Hopefully soon. But anyway, enough about me. Time to talk about James Charles. So remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, set your notifications to all so you can join me live or see my upcoming videos. Please leave me some video topic ideas below. I'm definitely going to do a Colleen Ballinger series, and there's still some interest in the Illuminati story, but let me know what else you want my takes on. And finally, since we are talking about James Charles in this video, this is a trigger warning that this video will discuss mental health struggles and sexual misconduct toward adults and minors, so please be mindful. If this topic is triggering for you, please feel free to skip this video. Go in peace, my friend. To those who are sticking around, let's all check. Do you have a drink? Do you have a snack? Are you cozy? Are you ready to settle in? All right, let's dive in.
Let's consider today kind of a soft relaunch of my channel because I'm not like fully back yet, I feel like, but something has happened. Somebody did something that I just feel like I really wanted to discuss. That's right, he's at it again. James Charles would like to come back to YouTube. He said he would like to be uncanceled, please. He asked, I guess, Cosmopolitan to give him that permission, as if they're the ones who have that power. I don't really quite understand. So yeah, he did this whole little nice interview with Cosmo, and I feel like it's worth talking about and reacting to. I rewatched all of my James Charles content today. If you're not aware, I made 3 videos about James Charles. The total content of those 3 videos is about 8 hours. Because it's me, it's about 8 hours of content about why he's a problem and why he has not changed over time. His career began with scandal. It has ended with scandal. It started with public scandal. After the bi-sister situation, it turned into private scandal that he was keeping private, the way he was interacting with men and boys. There's screenshots, there's proof. All the while, the more that he kept making promises about the ways he was going to change, the less that those promises came true, and the less that he did change in any way. So if he is asking to be uncanceled, I'm very curious as to why he feels he deserves that honor. So let's get into finding out why. All right, James Charles would like to be uncanceled, says Cosmopolitan and the author Gabrielle Bluestone. The photographs are lovely. Honestly, I have no grudge against Dan Monick. These are great. They're flashing by a little quick for me, but great photos. After this is what I'm saying. Just the first line. More than 2 years after allegations of impropriety sent the superstar beauty YouTuber into influencer purgatory, he's hoping to relaunch himself and his brand with the help of a new makeup line. In a wide-ranging interview with Cosmopolitan, Charles talks about effing up and trying to move on. This was back on July 13th. Yeah, okay, so I'm not that late. I'm kind of timely for once. That's fun. It is just the tone that we're setting from the start. It is the year of our internet 2023, and as surely as the sun rises, an internet celebrity has an apology to make. So here I am sitting in James Charles's Encino mansion like a pop culture priest ready to take his confession. He doesn't make any confessions, so we're being melodramatic. Let us begin. I don't want to sit here and effing mope and whine and cry because nobody wants to hear it, says Charles, sinking into a plush. So at least he knows. I had to do a lot of thinking. Like, okay, babe, this is your fault. No, you're not a P file. No, you're not a G, but you made a big mistake. Let's be clear about exactly what James is trying and failing at describing here. James Charles, in 2021, was like canceled. As much as you believe that cancel culture exists and works and whatever, there was the whole drama with Tati Westbrook and Shane and Jeffrey allegedly and like all of this shit, whatever. And he learned to kind of stop doing a bunch of online fighting as of 2019 to 2020. But here in 2021, a lot was uncovered about his interactions with boys and men, romantically slash sexually slash inappropriately slash potentially illegally, possibly, that all came to light. And let me just be clear about one thing. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit to what the article is going to mention briefly. But as I said, I rewatched all of my James Charles content today just to make sure that I'm coming at this from a place of education and just filling myself back in. There were at least 15 allegations, 15 individuals who came forward with stuff against James Charles. It stretched from minors to adults accusing him of, honestly, there was at least one example that could have fallen under SA under the correct circumstances, There was allegations of sexting minors, sending unrequested nudes and lewds to people, seeming to kind of focus in on trying to get into relationships with minors and street guys. Just a lot of very sketchy, very inappropriate behavior. And out of those 15-ish allegations, because there was the whole list that Def Noodles put together, right? And everybody has been very critical of him because 2 of those stories turned out to be inaccurate. But there's still 13, at least, that seem to be substantiated, have screenshots, have not had the people come forward to say, oh, I was joking, I was lying for clout. So that's a vast majority, I would say, So we really need to take seriously the danger that James Charles brings to whatever platform he's on. So this kind of cavalier attitude of
James Charles would like to be uncanceled, please.
Lets me know right off the bat, just right from the title, what we're in for, which is somebody who's completely uneducated about the issue trying to write about an alleged potential criminal. What really spurred me to make my series, my 3-part series about James Charles, was at the time the most recent thing that I had seen that really just got me riled up was the story of Ricky Murda. His story is set aside as a highlight in a separate video because you could just watch that story and kind of get the gist of why I was pissed enough to make 8 hours of content on James Charles. Ricky Murda's story is a little unique in that he had just turned 18 when James Charles started messaging him, but also James Charles, according to screenshots, blackmailed him, threatened to release his nudes or lewds if he didn't take down a TikTok that he had made about James Charles, just basically like saying, look, James Charles messaged me. So we're not just talking about someone who is doing all of these things. They're also willing to blackmail and extort the victims of their bad decisions, their illegal actions, into not talking about it. Just let me know that, like, I'm among friends here on this and that this is, like, wild to someone else besides me. That we're even considering approaching this, like,
James Charles wants to come back, please.
all right, so we have our author, Miss Danielle. Yeah, Danielle, Gabrielle. All right, how you doing, honey? All right, let's talk about it, honey bun. At this point, you're likely familiar with the specific quid pro quo inherent in celebrity profiles like this, the ones that come together post-cancellation after a respectable amount of time has passed post-cancelable sin. The last cancelable sin that James Charles committed was about 6 months ago. What's this? This is July 17th, 2023. About 6 months ago, those videos and messages that he had with David, a straight adult man that he was talking to.
So obviously, being that you are straight, I would assume that you don't know. Being that you are straight.
He sent the job description of being his boyfriend, and he sent those videos of like, well, this is why you really should be FaceTiming with me, because
if I'm being like, oh my god, David, you're annoying, over text, right? You don't know if I'm saying like, oh my god, David, you're being annoying. Or like, oh my god, David, you're being annoying. Or like, oh my god, David, you're being fucking annoying.
Like, that whole like mask off moment that James Charles had with us, that was about 6 months ago. So is it a respectable amount of time? Debatable. It's no surprise that a star's willingness to answer intimate questions about a catastrophic stretch of their lives increases dramatically when they have a project to promote. In today's case, that's ostensibly James Charles's new makeup line, Painted. But it's also Charles himself, a warier, acceptably contrite. That's a judgment that you're making, but don't tell me that it's acceptable how contrite he is when we haven't even seen that in this article. But still, just a little extra Charles. This very interview is to be a trial balloon. Its reception, the answer to the question, both of us, and maybe you too, if what auto-populates in Google search can be believed, are here to ask, is James Charles still canceled? What we really should be asking is James Charles changed as a person? Is James Charles better? Is James Charles making better choices? Has James Charles taken responsibility and accountability and paid up in any way for what he did to at least like 13 individuals, if not more, because who knows how many have been silenced by blackmail like he tried to do with Ricky Murda, allegedly. Why is the question about, are we all done having our fit, instead of, is James a better person yet? That's what really matters. After all, would a still ousted person be allowed to pose for red carpet cameras at the People's Choice Award? Yes. Or chat amiably with paparazzi while out and about in Hollywood? Yes. That's the same reason that you're writing an article about them. Idiots who don't pay attention to this shit. Would a still banished person have hundreds of thousands of fans enthusiastically engage with his YouTube beauty tutorials? Yes. Because James Charles's primary audience is children. They don't know. They don't follow drama and commentary. They don't watch the news. They don't read in newspapers and magazine articles and online articles like this. They don't watch 8 hours of Hannah Needs to Yell stupidly deep dive commentary content about everything that James Charles did wrong. They're 6. They're not watching that shit. So of course they see colorful thumbnails, especially more and more recently. His thumbnails have been geared more toward kids, that like animated brightly colored style. They see that and they're like, oh, the try not to laugh challenge? Whoo boy, I'm 6, here I go. Come on, don't condescend to me. Don't insult my intelligence. Come on, sweetie, come on, Gabrielle. You and I know that you're better than this. Although if you were, you wouldn't be writing this article, so never mind. Would a truly exiled person be 24 years old, unrelated, and living in a reportedly $7 million farmhouse that looks like a cross between the homes of blah blah blah, also unrelated, and also yes? There's a lot riding on the answer. Painted, a solo venture for 4 years in the making, launches in just a few weeks. People have speculated that I have partners or investors, which I don't know how that rumor got started, Charles says. This line is fully self-funded. Every single dollar that has gone into the brand has been from my personal savings and checking accounts. I have no investors, no partners, no billion-dollar backers behind me. All the more reason for me definitely not to put any money into this makeup brand, because it will all go directly into James Charles's pockets. Great. Thank you for the honesty, Jim. That neither of us knows how it will go is due to the murky nature of cancel culture. It's not murky. He was inappropriate with a bunch of minors and straight adult men. He was inappropriate. He misused his power as an influencer. He misused his parasocial relationship toward these people. And allegedly, at least one person he had tried to blackmail into silence. It's not murky. I don't know what's murky about that. I don't know why it's murky for you. It's not murky for me. The murky nature of cancel culture and its crisscrossing tripwires of implied and loosely enforced rules. I'm not going to participate in this disingenuous critique of cancel culture. We're going to focus on James. And because of a hungry and fickle internet that doles out forgiveness, or maybe just forgetfulness, seemingly at whim. That's not a sentence, that's a fragment, first of all. Secondly, when you have a child audience, children keep coming back, whether or not you're canceled. Because again, children don't watch commentary videos. That's all the participation. It's a landscape, hellscape some would say, in which all comebacks are tentative, where the conversation around an offense often ends up obscuring the offense itself. When I polled friends and colleagues about Charles in the run-up to this day, the general consensus was that he had done something bad, but no one was clear on exactly what. Watch my series. If you can come out of that and tell me that you don't know what he did and why it's bad, then I have questions about you, not about James. My questions about James are answered. As a very online millennial, apparently not really, I had long been ambiently aware of Charles while also knowing next to nothing about him. So that's your fault. The influencer's platonic ideal. Bored at home during the pandemic, I watched the Dramageddon feud he had with another YouTuber whose name I can never remember, so she goes on to shade Tati. This did not happen during the pandemic. Dramageddon took place in 2019. So you're just wrong. Thank you. Anecdotally, it seems like everyone in my life under the age of 25 considers Charles an internet celebrity, and no one over 45 has heard of him unless they have kids. Those in this former group know that he's been famous since his teen years, although his storylines, so to speak, are all self-produced. Charles first went viral in 2016 after he bought a ring light, and this is a lie, what she's saying. This story is fake. He did not bring in a ring light and use glossy highlighter to accentuate his cheekbones in his high school yearbook photo. That is what he posted about on Twitter that made him go viral, but he later revealed that that was a lie and he had photoshopped his own yearbook photos. So the fact that she doesn't even know the truth about that was how James Charles became famous and became a makeup influencer, YouTuber, whatever. That really kickstarted his career. He had been posting before that, but that was really what drew a lot of makeup related attention to him. So if she doesn't know that, she's not informed enough to write this article, or she's lying. It's one of those. Suddenly he was everywhere. The first male spokesperson for CoverGirl, a guest on Ellen. Literally not a flex. Not a flex. He did a commercial with Katy Perry, filmed with the Kardashians, hosted a YouTube reality competition show aptly titled Instant Influencer, and a bunch of scandals in between there that we're just not going to talk about. Gotcha. The combination of his fresh-faced, youthful earnestness and bold, maximalist aesthetic, his house is like black and white. What James Charles are you watching? I would love to meet the James Charles that you're watching. Made him one of the most financially successful beauty YouTubers of all time with a rumored annual income of, that's great. At one point he was so popular that a reported 30-second appearance he made at a British mall drew thousands of okay, that's so nice. No one's arguing that he's popular. But you'll notice his appearance at a British mall drew thousands of teenagers. Children. Kids. Okay? All right. Whew. In a corner of the internet known for constant sniping, backstabbing, and hopelessly convoluted rivalries, thanks to Jeffree Star for that one, the same lack of guile and perma-logged-on status that drew viewers to Charles also made him a magnet for drama. No, He kept doing shit. He kept stirring shit up. He kept starting problems with people and or just acting in a generally ignorant, offensive way at times. Watch my first video. It is all the public scandals. First video about James Charles. Not the very, very first one, but the first video from 2022. That's why he was a magnet for internet drama. Shit that he caused. There he was, posting regular apologies for things like insensitive tweets about Africa and Ebola, or asking Shawn Mendes to juggle me like that during an IG live stream in which Shawn literally juggled. Those are the only two things that I recall him apologizing for out of the 13 to 15 drama moments that I cataloged in my video. So we're just not doing research. Boy, I could get a job at Cosmopolitan. It's really not hard, huh? If you just kind of scrape the surface and not much farther. Charles developed a reputation for a kind of over-the-top thirstiness, a quality that could be interpreted as refreshingly candid or slightly cringe, depending on who you asked. Who's watching James Charles videos and saying, wow, this is refreshingly candid? He developed a reputation for thirstiness. Again, not a flex. Not a flex. His Dramageddon opponent initially accused Charles of using his fame to manipulate straight men. True to influencer form, she retracted the claim and apologized a year later. In my opinion, the year after her retraction, which was 2021, when everybody came forward saying that James did just that, Tati was exonerated. So, we're just leaving things out of the story for fun or what? Yet all the drama seemed to ultimately earn him one thing: more followers, and James knew it, and that's why he kept getting himself into more drama, because it got him more attention and got him more followers. At his peak, Charles had nearly 26 million YouTube subscribers, on top of tens of millions more on TikTok and Instagram. That was all before, though. You needed a comma after before. As what it reads as now is, that was all before, though. So I don't know what though is. You need the comma after before for it to read the way that you just get a proofreader, Gabrielle. And also they'll be able to fact check what you write. I don't know. I guess Cosmopolitan doesn't have the money for that. In February 2021, at age 21, Charles confronted a career crisis he couldn't quickly apologize for or capitalize on. He was publicly accused of sending lewd photographs and inappropriate sexual messages to a then 16-year-old fan. At least 5 people had come forward, leading up to him publishing the taking accountability video that he ended up deleting. Charles said he was misled into believing the boy was 18 and that he blocked him as soon as he learned the truth. I've never been more disgusted in my life than when I found out that kid was 16 years old, Charles says. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. See, in a court of law, specifically, it does not matter whether or not you knew that the minor you were communicating with was a minor. You still go to jail, regardless of your intention or your knowledge. You still get in trouble for sending lewds and sexual messages to a minor. So, just thought you might want to know that. The allegation triggered more complaints against Charles. Yeah. They were primarily disseminated in the form of TikToks filled with screenshots of flirtatious conversations that Charles allegedly had conducted with a number of male fans, some of whom were straight, many of whom were minors. We're just leaving that detail out though, huh? A few of the reported accusations, like the initial one, were serious and claimed to detail inappropriate online interactions between Charles and minors. Okay, my assumption, my bad. Other claims, including an incident which Charles allegedly called someone daddy, felt muddier. Almost all of them were eventually rounded up into viral Twitter threads by a controversial poster who keeps track of internet scandals, now under fire himself. This is Def Noodles. Def Noodles is not under fire right now. Last year, he had a whole moment with the comedy shows. That has long since ended. Again, Def Noodles made a list of at least 15 people who came forward with allegations against James Charles, and 2 of those turned out to be inaccurate in some way, shape, or form. The other 13 or so were not disproven, were not like, oh, this was just a joke, or I made this up for clout. So do not come at me discrediting Def Noodles when, again, James is the one we should be asking about. James's progress, James's change, and even if James has changed and is no longer seeking out minors or straight men, do we need him here though? Because what he offers is offered by about 100 to 1,000 other creators. He has his millions. He has his $7 million farmhouse. Let someone else get a piece of the pie, you know? Someone a little younger and fresher and not a sexual predator, allegedly. What is the... That's the photo I need in my Cosmo article. Okay. In the end, substantiated or not, substantiated matters. What do you mean substantiated or not? Media reports indicated that at least 15 boys and men had accused Charles of inappropriate behavior. It matters if and when they were substantiated. What do you mean substantiated or not? It matters. That's the crux of this. Charles says now, about the breadth of the allegations, the source of where the list came from was not doing any sort of research, no fact-checking. Not true. Def Noodles compiled everything, but he was not the source. The source was all of these individuals who were providing screenshots. Def Noodles is not a source. He's a reporter. This is really easy. I don't know how James Charles is sitting here in 2023, 2 years after he came back from the 2021 cancellation, and he made his, not the taking accountability video, the one that guys, my brain still isn't so good. This is the thing. I'm not like back all the way to YouTube and to the way that I want to be because my brain is like, whoop, sometimes. I'll talk about it at the end of the streams, my progress with the insomnia and the treatment and stuff. Long story, but my brain, executive functioning, memory, gone a lot these days. An open conversation, that's the one. That video was in July of 2021. He made all these promises. He discredited the entire taking accountability video from 3 months earlier, where he had actually tried to take accountability for some stuff and apologize for some stuff. He didn't do it perfectly. We all know that. But I think that was a much more honest effort than an open conversation, which was his final word on the matter in July of 2021 when he came back and just decided that he was coming back now, whether we liked it or not. I don't know how he can sit here in 2023 and still be saying shit like this. There was no research, there was no fact checking. Some of the screenshots depicted consensual conversations between adults. Others were completely fake and never even happened. You want to specify? Charles had never been legally charged with engaging inappropriately with a minor. Doesn't matter. First of all, being legally charged is not a thing. You can be criminally charged, or you can face a civil lawsuit. The fact that people didn't sue you makes sense because you're a millionaire, a multi-millionaire, and these random people you were talking to are not. So that's just a logic. Obviously, they're not going to sue you because they probably can't afford it. And being criminally charged, I am personally very bitter that the LAPD exists, or whatever police in his town exists. All of these allegations exist, and no investigation seems to have been done. Nobody seems to be looking into this stuff because it's very obvious what's going on here. There is evidence. But the fact that it has not been charged does not mean that it did not happen. Charles has never been legally charged with engaging inappropriately with a minor, let alone proven to have knowingly done so. That's not true. Bruh! The many screenshots. What more proof do you need? Nevertheless, that April, Charles uploaded a 14-minute YouTube video called Holding Myself Accountable, where he admitted to inadvertently exchanging messages with 2 16-year-old boys he said he was led to believe were 18, and he apologized for his desperate behavior. Cosmopolitan reached out to multiple people who said they were minors at the time of their exchanges with Charles. One asked if we would be willing to pay and did not reply again when told our publication does not compensate sources for interviews. Honestly, we've been talking about this whole Colleen Ballinger thing, right? We've been talking about the G word in association with her. I think that some of this James Charles stuff can also be seen with his communications with minors as being falling under the G word category, okay? So yeah, if Cosmopolitan, and apparently this extremely careless, insensitive writer, reaches out to me to ask me to make a comment about my G word, I'm gonna at least ask to be compensated for the emotional labor of reassessing and rehashing my trauma that I'm doing for their benefit alone. Yeah, I have no problem with an alleged victim asking to be compensated for the labor that they're going to have to do to give you a story that your name is going on. What? Is that supposed to be a gotcha? Another former accuser wrote back via Instagram DM with a new revelation. He had, this is so poorly worded, come on, Gabrielle. He said, already privately apologized to Charles a few months ago for, quote, telling him I was 18 a few years ago in the TikTok I made that blew the situation up, end quote. When asked to elaborate, the person did not reply. Charles's team says someone did message Charles this spring, admitting he lied about his age. Would be helpful to know who that person was, because I would like to be accurate in my reporting. So let's say out of the 15, there were 2 that we know that Def Noodles has said he got wrong, and then there's 1 more that apparently is admitting to Cosmo namelessly, could be a real person, could be a lie, for all I know. There's no name, there's no proof, there's nothing. But if we believe Cosmo, which at this point I've seen a lot of lies in this article so far, so I don't know if I should, but if I was to give them the most benefit of the doubt and believe that this is true, that means that 3 out of the 15 people who came forward have been either disproven or have admitted to lying. Great. So what about the other 12? 12 people have come forward to say that James, at least 12, because there have been more incidents since then, since that list that Def Noodles made. At least 12 people, and I can think of at least 2 more. So 14 people have come forward about inappropriate interactions that they had with James Charles. And we're focusing on the 3 that may have been a problem. And we're focusing on 1 that wanted to be compensated for their work. When are we going to focus on the 12 or the 14? Get your priorities straight. Come on, honey. If a celebrity with tens of millions of followers came sliding into your DMs, would you respond? I probably would. That's exactly the problem, Gabrielle. That's the issue. Come on. That's the problem. Parasocial relationship, misuse of your power, knowing that you have power over your fans and using that power to get what you want from them, breaking their boundaries. This is what James Charles has been alleged of doing, but also there's evidence beyond of all the people. Like, there's so much evidence. Sorry, I know that some of you guys don't like it when I smile and laugh when I talk about this stuff. Part of it is like a laugh so I don't cry response. It's also the ridiculous nature, the ridiculousness of Gabrielle truly making these statements without seeing. You've got to be joking. It's like, it's got to be a joke, right? This take, this is your take. It's not a flex. To say if a celebrity with tens of millions of followers came sliding into my DMs, I would respond to that. That's the point. That's called a power imbalance. That's why influencers with tens of millions of followers should not go sliding into DMs. You're proving our point. The people who want to cancel James. Like, what do you think you're saying? Charles says he recognizes the power imbalance at play in his interactions online. Good. He should have verified everyone's ages, he says, and been more sensitive to how his fame could color the way others responded to him. And can I just say, this lesson of he should have been more sensitive to how his fame could color the way others responded to him, that has been the exact same lesson that James Charles has been trying to learn ever since the beginning of his career. Ever since, the Ebola tweet, most of his scandals have been about him not thinking before he tweets, not thinking before he messages people, not thinking, or at least pretending not to think, just doing stuff without considering, or at least seeming not to consider, how his power with his fan base impacts the power of what he says. It's 2023. He's been doing this shit online since 2017. He's been here for a while. And he's still apparently trying to learn how his fame colors the way others respond to him. Because again, 6 months ago, he was in a straight man's DMs and sending him videos. The fact that James Charles is still coming to grips with his own influence as a millions followed influencer after 6 years at least of having a platform of millions is just, Whew. This is why. This is why, Gabrielle. This is why we're not okay with him coming back. Because he's still got a lot more learning to do. And by the time he's done learning, he's probably going to be like 55. And by then, I think he'll be a little bit out of touch with the youth interested in the colorful makeup market. Again, great photography. This is a great shot. And that's a very... I don't hate that shirt. I don't. Oh, I absolutely did fuck up, James says. But he denies that he ever engaged in grooming, a practice defined by the anti-sexual violence organization RAINN as, quote, manipulative behaviors that an abuser uses to gain access to a potential victim, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught, end quote. Of course you don't think that you groomed people. I don't know why that quote is in here. Charles continues, I feel like that word is very... subtly referencing Colleen Ballinger. I feel like that word is a very popular buzzword right now, especially in politics and stuff. But the actual meaning of it has been so misconstrued. Yeah, it has been misconstrued because there are ways to G-word people that are not sexual, for example. And there are ways to G-word people without meeting them in person. There are ways to G-word people like what you did, like talking to minors sexually and sending lewds and nudes. So, yeah, we really should have a discussion about all of the different ways that G-wording can happen, including what you did, allegedly. Referring to the first allegation against him, he adds, the conversation lasted 1 hour. I don't know this person. I've never met this person. Nothing happened between me and this actual person. So to use that word is categorically incorrect. You brought up who used the G word? You did. You brought it up. Also, you can groom someone for a short amount of time, and that doesn't make it not grooming anymore. In the absence of hard evidence, completely false, hordes of commenters and bystanders glommed onto the idea that Charles was creepy, irresponsible at best, possibly predatory at worst. No, definitely predatory at worst. If we're talking about worst, he should be in jail for a very long time. His apology, one in a burgeoning and much mocked genre of YouTube influencer mea culpas, was full-throated, but it did nothing to quell the furor. After years of benefiting from online controversies, thank you for pointing that out, because Charles has told people multiple times that he capitalizes on controversies to grow his platform, Charles had officially become too toxic for the internet. It's not about toxicity. It's about hurting kids, and it's about sexual impropriety, sexual misconduct. That's not toxic. That's illegal. It's criminal. It's abusive. What are you doing? His YouTube page was demonetized. He did not return as the host of Instant Influencer, and his other business ventures languished, as they should. All of those were appropriate responses. He and Morphe, an influencer-focused beauty brand with which he'd partnered on an eyeshadow palette and brushes, cut ties. Good. Charles's team said that this was done at their own request after they saw Morphe getting backlash for associating with Charles. This is a history lesson that is great. One estimate put his total loss of income in the millions. Deserved. What? Do you want me to feel bad for him? You want me to feel bad for the millionaire who was sexually misconducting his way across all of the internet, all of TikTok, all of using TikTok and Instagram as dating apps, which they're definitely not. But in 2020, after the Tati and Bai's sister situation, he decided to host a TikTok bachelor thing. Everybody here on this non-dating app submit applications to be my boyfriend, and the only people who are going to see this are my followers who are my fans. So I'm asking my fans to submit videos of themselves telling me why I should date them, despite the imbalance of power there. Like, come on. Why should I feel bad for that? Come on. Again, great photo. I can't even begin to explain to you how bad that week of my life was, Charles remembers as he looks out at his backyard. The imagery, Jesus. I was crying myself to sleep every single night. I was sitting there in bed staring at my phone. I wanted to kill myself. I wasn't talking to anybody. Yeah, maybe you felt bad. Maybe you felt guilty about what you did. What? Why do you want me to feel bad for you? I don't... People threw food into his yard. The horror. And spray painted his property's fence, so the fence did its job and kept them out, prompting him to hire security. You know what? I don't want him to be physically harmed. Get security. That's fine. I think I've always been somebody who's been able to cope, he continues. I have been able to turn my phone off, to go see my family, to have friends over, go to an escape room, watch a fun movie, play Mario Kart, play Minecraft, build a Lego set, all of these kids' hobbies. I have been able to do those to make myself feel better. With this situation, it was really scary because my coping mechanisms weren't coping. It was the first time where I was like, oh, F, I actually don't know what to do here. I eventually got to a point where I was like, this is not healthy, this is not good, this is getting to a really fucking dark place. The fallout became deeply personal when his younger brother, who works as a model in New York City, stopped talking to him because of the allegations. It's now been 2 years since they last spoke, Charles says. And that is very difficult. I don't want to downplay. I do believe that James went through some kind of a mental health dark time, depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. What I'm trying to say is it's completely a natural response to what was happening to him. It makes sense that when you suddenly realize, oh, I did a really bad, that you would feel guilty, you would feel depressed, you would struggle with what you did, why you did it. And that's not even what he's describing here. He's just saying, I wasn't talking to people and I was crying and I was staring at my phone. He's not saying I was grappling with my morality. I felt existentially rocked by what I had done. And by what do I have a moral compass? How do I trust my moral compass? That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about cancel culture. Let's not pretend that this was not a very normal way for him to respond to being called out. Like, it's that moment of self-reflection and of like, oh, I feel guilty and I feel bad because I did bad. That's good. That's a natural connection. Why should I feel bad for like the appropriate response? That's where I'm at. Treading a well-worn post-scandal path, Charles spent the next few months mostly offline, doing, quote, a lot of self-reflection, end quote, and conferring with mental health professionals. Good to hear. That was something that I was talking about a lot in my series. There was a resounding lack of discussion about James Charles ever going to see a therapist. So I'm happy to hear, at least here, that he was seeing mental health professionals. And while a couple of months may seem like a laughably short time for a break, to Charles, having no stage felt like an endless punishment. That's an addiction he needs to break. I've been on break for a couple months now, longer than I expected to be. And I gotta tell you, having no stage is fine with me. I had other stuff going on. I was taking care of my mental health. I was moving and unpacking. I didn't need a stage. I still don't need a stage for like a minute. you know, there's an addictive quality to this. Anyway, I absolutely fucking hated it, he said. I am somebody who likes to be busy all the time. You can be busy in other ways. Just try it. Just try it. I love filming. Having nothing to do drove me insane. In the summer of 2021, Charles prepared a comeback video, a 30-minute YouTube post titled An Open Conversation, which began with the acknowledgement that it would be ridiculous and irresponsible to try to just come back to social media and pretend like nothing happened. It quickly became YouTube's most disliked video of the week, according to Forbes, although it's been watched more than 6 million times to date. Objection relevance. His next post about a TikTok cookie trend was only the third most disliked video of the week. So Charles kept posting, driven by what I'd armchair therapist diagnosed as a compulsive need for online interaction. It's not just his brand, it's been his entire personality since grade school, since his senior year of high school. He had 16 other years of just being a person. Okay. Again, great photo. The composition, love this. Is he trying to save his own butt since the Miranda allegations have finally been published? There's a lot of similarities here between the Miranda stuff and Colleen stuff and the James Charles stuff. I'll just say that. She's an attorney. Is Gabrielle an attorney? If you go to the article and click her name, it pulls up her credentials. Oh my god. I hate it. She's doing the attorney thing. That makes so much sense that she's a lawyer or that she's like a defense lawyer or something. And listen, I think there are reasons to be sympathetic toward James Charles. As I discussed in my big old 4-hour video, I think that he experienced some sort of essay in some way when James Charles was a kid, there was this period of time when he was addicted to going on Omegle and talking in a sexual manner with old stranger men. He talks about this in a video that he published in 2018, in May of 2018. And that was his first experience learning or really being exposed in any way to sexual interaction with other people. And, you know, as it says here, he was the only out gay kid in a small town in school in a small town in Albany, New York. So, like, you know, he felt isolated, so he turned to the internet for community, and what he found was completely not what he bargained for. And those people took advantage of him. He was essayed. I don't know if G word applies here, because on Omegle, it was always, you would talk with a random person each time. You don't talk to the same person over and over. That was part of the point of Omegle, was that every time you would talk to somebody new, every time you would go to do the video chat part of it. I think that absolutely can warp somebody's mind when it comes to like how to interact with people, when it comes to dating and sexuality and relationships and stuff. However, that happened when he was 12. I would hope that between age 12 and like 17, when he became a part of social media, that he would have, ideally, I hope his parents got him therapy. Or alternatively, I hope that he, you know, was able to have some deep conversations with his parents or his friends or his church or somebody to kind of help him process through that in some way. You know, ideally, one would hope. And ultimately, it's not an excuse. It sucks. That's the one place where I have a little bit of sympathy for him, but it's not even necessarily in the way of like, now it becomes an excuse, because it's not. It's more of like, how did we get here? How does a person like James Charles come into existence where he, first of all, thinks that this is a way to talk to people, and then secondly, can be told over and over and over and over and over again to stop, and just still thinks that he is fine to keep going forward with how he talks to people and who he talks to, and if he just changes his strategy a little bit, he'll just be able to continue doing what he's doing, no matter how many times people tell him it's inappropriate. When I'm like, how does this happen? How does such a person come to exist? that this is their mindset? Then that's where I look at that stuff from the past and I'm like, okay, at least I get where it comes from. Doesn't mean I agree, doesn't mean I support it, but at least I understand like how this comes to be, you know? But there are plenty of people who are victims of G word behavior who don't do this. There are plenty of people who are victims of SA who don't do this, who don't have the same voluminous resume as James Charles in this regard. So it's not like those things make you destined to become what James Charles is. I say that because here in the article, they're like trying to humanize him and trying to make him sympathetic to me as the only out gay kid in school in a small town outside Albany, New York. James Charles found his community on social media, he says. So like that being like, oh, he was lonely, he was looking for community. Like that's not something I feel as like sympathetic toward compared to the like, yeah, he endured SA in some internet kind of way when he was 12. That's something that I'm like, ooh, like the part of me that wants to protect children is very like angry at Omegle about that. But it doesn't excuse what's happening over the past 6 years with him. First on Tumblr and then on Twitter and Instagram, skipped over the whole Omegle bit. We liked each other's blogs and would talk back and forth and Skype call on school nights to just chit-chat and hang out. When he was 13, he'd travel to New York City and meet the girlies he'd met on the internet. Romantic relationships would become a whole other challenge, one that ultimately led to the incidents, he said. Finding dating prospects in the rarefied influencer celebrity strata he eventually vaulted into was tough. Quickly, please name 5 famous male gay celebrities from the ages of 20 to 25, he says. You can't, because they don't exist. James Charles says they don't exist. And that's why, apparently, allegedly, he has to scour through social media and reach out to all these like micro-influencers and exert his power and balance over them, because there's not 5 male famous gay celebrities from the ages of 20 to 25. Like, he could date a 26-year-old. He's 24. He's 24. He could date probably up to age 30 and still like have a decent conversation and a decent relationship with them. Well, once you hit mid-20s, once your brain fully develops essentially, you can relate with other adults a lot more easily. Name five famous male gay celebrities from the ages of 20 to 25. Yeah, these people don't exist, so that's why they don't like him. Yeah, for real. Let's be real. Based on that whole like David clip that came out about the what are the like qualifications to be my boyfriend. I have a great personality, but also I need my man to be 6'2" and have armpit hair and be willing to go to escape rooms with me, and we'll occasionally FaceTime, and then you can live at my mansion. I think he sounds insufferable. I think that's what's happening. Either he's insufferable, or because 5 famous male gay celebrities don't exist from the ages of 20 to 25, he has to, as he says, use the internet as an avenue for exploration. He started using TikTok's For You and Instagram's Explore pages as dating apps, as many people his age do, but admittedly ignored the pitfalls. This is the thing. Do many people use your For You page and your Instagram Explore page as a dating app? Truly. When I see somebody on TikTok or on my Explore page, I'm like, oh, they posted this because they're an influencer. They're telling a story. They're like, I watch a lot of dancing videos, like especially cultural dancing videos. So I'm like, oh, great. They're showing off this cool dance that I've never seen before. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to reach out to try to date that person. And it's not just because I am engaged. It is because it doesn't occur to me that that would ever be a thing. Truly, I thought that that's what dating apps are for. He ignored the pitfalls, he says. His biggest mistakes, he now thinks, were making himself too available. He was the one reaching out to everybody. He was the one sliding in everybody else's DMs. He, the powerful influencer with millions of followers across all of these platforms, was the one sliding into these micro influencers' DMs. But he was just so available to them. Come on. He was recklessly hitting on anyone he thought might be showing him interest. That's the problem. Okay, you got one. Yeah, you got one. You were hitting on anyone he thought might be showing you attention. Except that most of the time they weren't showing you attention. You just like saw Shawn Mendes juggling for his audience of millions. That's not him showing you attention. That's him putting on a performance. I think that's why, like, I don't know that the For You page or the Explore page is a good place to like be a dating app, because people are performing. They're producing content. They're producing like performances. They're not there with the intention of romance or hookups or relationships. They're there to show off their juggling or whatever. Like, they're not thinking about you, James. His intention was never to prey on minors, he says. It doesn't matter in a court of law. He tried to explain all this in Holding Myself Accountable, but it just didn't come out right, he reflects. And let me just say, and I said this in my series, I feel like Holding Myself Accountable, that video, the first video that he posted in 2021, that was a much better attempt at an apology video than an open conversation, which came out in July. In Holding Myself Accountable, I think let me be honest with you, the whole I'm desperate thing, and in that video he talked about power imbalance as well. I think that he was like starting down the road of self-reflection, and he had these incomplete thoughts that needed to be fleshed out in therapy about like, why is this happening? Why am I doing this? Oh, it's because I'm desperate. It was not the correct conclusion to come to. There was more there that needed to be unearthed in therapy. I think that he spoke too soon. And I think that he had not really gotten to the bottom of the issue when he kind of thought that he had by saying, I'm desperate. Like, you still need 3 more therapy sessions to get below I'm desperate to whatever else is beneath that, you know? But that was what he had at the time. And that's what, excuse me, my voice is going. I haven't filmed in so long. To him, it felt like a revelation. So when he was Holding Myself Accountable, he was like, I'm going to be honest. He admitted to doing several things. He didn't admit to doing a lot. There's a lot that's still out there that he didn't admit to, but he admitted to at least a couple. There were steps toward doing the right thing. I talk to my sister about this sometimes, where I'm like, I think that when you want somebody to do the right thing, there's a spectrum between where they're at and where you want them to get to. I think that he was like on his way. He wasn't quite there, but he had moved forward. from where he had started. And then I think that with that being so poorly received when he felt like he was actually trying, then it led to an open conversation where he retracts everything and he gets all defensive and he's like, all right, fine. Then I didn't do any of this. You didn't want to hear my admission about 2 of these cases? Fine. I didn't do any of it then. Fine. And then he gets into that defensive posture instead of trying, again, to listen to what people are saying and have a conversation. I think he was trying with holding myself accountable. And I think it got a little squashed by the internet. But I understand why people were upset too, because it was incomplete. It was not everything that we wanted it to be. Like, I'm not the one to accept the apology. I give people a lot of chances that a lot of other people might not necessarily give them. So I understand that I come into it a little bit softer than a lot of other people, and I'm not necessarily correct for doing that. So he says he tried to explain all this in holding myself accountable, but it just didn't come out right, he reflects. I've been fucked over by men so many different times. At this point, I just want a fucking boyfriend. Somebody that's going to love me, that's going to care for me. Desperate. So a lot of times I go into just talking to somebody with rose-colored glasses. Critical thinking is so important. Thinking before you act, thinking before you tweet, before you message, before you whatever. Very important, especially when it comes to dating, romantic, sexual stuff, personal stuff, vulnerable stuff, because you can really hurt people. It's not about what you want, James. Relationships are give and take. They're mutual. They're 2 people coming together to create something together. It's not just about you wanting a boyfriend to care for you and love you. That's like wanting a servant, So I want to hear what you want to put forward in a relationship, not just, you come live in my mansion and we'll go to escape rooms, which is something that I like to do, and I'll look at your armpit hair, which is something that I find interesting and attractive, and it'll be all about me. That's a relationship. I still have to ask, though, why didn't he just stick to actual adult dating apps? Great question. Finally! Journalism! Finally! He tells me he previously had accounts on Raya, Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble, and while he did go on dates with people he met there, he ultimately felt too exposed. Okay. Like anyone he swiped right on was going to take screenshots of their conversations or brag to their friends about it. He doesn't fully address that anyone on any social media platform could do the same. Exactly. Finally, we have 1 paragraph of journalism in this piece. Yeah, the same thing could happen no matter where you find your date, your boyfriend, your hookup, whatever. If somebody is a bad person with bad intentions or whatever you think is going on there, James, you could find such a person off the street or at the grocery store. It doesn't have to be on any app of any kind. The most appropriate place for you to go to try to find someone is like, oh, but I can't do that, because they can do the same mean thing to me that anybody could do anywhere. Again, how in 2023 is he still saying this? That's what kills me. It's like if he was saying this in 2019, I would get it a little bit more because he was more young and more dumb. But now, after everything that he's been through, give me a break. Come on, it's the same shit over and over. I know, you know, and he knows that Charles is on a mission to rehabilitate his reputation. And even though we've already established he's very good at his job, have we? I have to tell you that his regret doesn't come across in person as the opportunistic artifice so many celebrities begrudgingly wade through. It's more that he just seems young. Not that everyone in his position would have the luxury of being perceived as naive or guiltless. This comeback would look a lot different if Charles were not a physically beautiful white man. 2 things. His regret coming across in person, not as being optimistic or opportunistic, but as being, he seems young. The regret that he shows in front of a Cosmopolitan reporter, journalist, it's a show. Also, I think that the regret that comes across in person is self-motivated. Like, okay, for example, James does this a lot, where whenever he apologizes for something, he never says, I did this bad thing and I'm sorry. He says, I did this bad thing and it totally sucks. Oh, it sucks that I did that. Or it sucks that happened. He never says, I'm sorry that I did that. He never says, I'm sorry that you were hurt by my actions. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I said that. I shouldn't have XYZ. In a lot of these videos, he says, and that sucks that you feel that way. Similarly, Colleen Ballinger, because don't worry, I've been looking into it. In her apology videos, first of all, she deflects everything to being everybody else's fault but her own. But when she does admit to something that she did wrong, like for example, sending the lingerie to Adam, she doesn't say that was wrong of me. That was so immoral. That was so inappropriate. No, she says that was so stupid. That was so stupid for me to do. Why did I think that I should do that? And these subtle differences reveal like how they're thinking about these things. They're thinking about these things and how it makes them look, not how it impacts the people on the receiving end of their actions. Colleen doesn't feel that it was morally wrong for her to send the lingerie to Adam, in my opinion. She feels that it was stupid for her to do so because it made her look so bad. And that's different. That's self-motivated. That's not caring about how it impacts Adam. Similarly, James Charles, I don't think that he feels that he's done anything wrong in these situations, especially if this is really where he's at, if what he's saying in this article is really what he feels. I don't think that he really is showing signs of feeling that he did anything immoral or inappropriate or wrong. I think this regret has to do with his reputation. He's on a mission to rehabilitate his reputation. It's not about, I feel repentant for this bad thing that I did and I want to make it up to you and I want to do something to pay you back for the harm that I caused you. You know, let me know how I can make it up to you. I promise I'm never going to do that again because it was so wrong and I hurt you. It's about, oh my God, I'm such a fucking idiot for doing this stuff or for letting it get out that I was doing this stuff. It's about himself. At least that's how it appears. I believe that he regrets the news about what he was doing. I believe that he regrets it getting out there, what he was doing. I don't believe necessarily that he regrets doing it. So if his regret comes off as like, oh, he seems young, that's because he's not fully understanding everything that went on. And if he's still, in 2023, is not fully understanding why he's canceled, then no, he definitely should remain canceled. He definitely should not come back. He's not ready to apologize. He's not ready to show us any growth or change because there hasn't been any. There's just been him being like, I'm sad that people are mad at me because I didn't do anything wrong. I just texted people. God, I just sent pictures of my bare ass to people who didn't ask for that. Why? What do you want? Fine, I won't message minors anymore. What? I'll ask them their age. Fine. Can I sell my makeup now? God. That's the first thing. The second thing here. Not that everyone in his position would have the luxury of being perceived as naive or guileless. This comeback would look a lot different if Charles were not a physically beautiful white man. Again, for one brief glimmering moment, we have journalism here, we have commentary, we have some social spicy commentary here. What she's saying here, I do agree with this, but it's a little bit of a random woke point to be trying to win after everything that you just glossed over for like 3 pages or 4 pages. Yeah, if James Charles was a black guy, physically beautiful, let's say, commercially attractive, I think is what she's trying to say. Like, it's marketing speak. A commercially attractive black man accused of everything, there would be no room for a comeback because of how our society is, right? That's essentially what she's getting to. Or if he was a white man who was less attractive than he is, like he's commercially attractive, he has high cheekbones and a sculpted jaw and a symmetrical face, like those Eurocentric beauty standards. He checks a lot of those boxes. If he was like less like traditionally attractive looking, this comeback would be much more difficult if it was allowed at all. He just seems young. And then she goes on to say essentially that means that he's naive or guileless, and if it was somebody else of a different race or like less attractive than him, then they wouldn't have the luxury of being seen as, oh, he's just naive, oh, he's just guileless. It would be more like of a harsh, like, no, this person can't come back because of how appearancist everybody is, I guess. I think that that's probably true. I just think it's a random ass thing to put in here at this point in the article. Like, we're excusing him for everything that he did to minors, but let's try to earn back some woke points by making a point that he's a white man? Come on. I sometimes wonder what I would do if I blew up my professional life in a public, self-immolating way, and the answer is I'd hide away in a surf shack on a remote island, swaddling myself in caftans until my money ran out. Nobody asked. But I'm no James Charles. The traits that made him so famous in the first place, him causing a bunch of drama for himself, continuously lying about a ring light and photo editing. Oh, wait, no, sorry. It's the instinct and ability to constantly seek out the light are the same that have pushed him to endure the backlash and the pain. He's more cautious now? Doesn't really seem so. Although not so much that he's given up on the DM sliding completely. Why? Why? That was the exact thing that people had an issue with. Why? Instead, he's started requiring potential romantic interests to provide IDs before he'll engage. Why? Do you have just a collection of all these people's driver's licenses? Why don't you just go places where there's a third party to mediate, like a dating app or like a matchmaker? Jesus. I'm a club bouncer at this point, he says, which even still hasn't stopped the occasional breach of trust. Earlier this year, a TikTok user shared snippets of a flirtatious conversation he had with Charles in which Charles outlines his requirements for a boyfriend. David, I talked about this. Charles also tells me he recently caught a 17-year-old trying to lie about his age by taking out a digit on his ID. So he is really messaging minors. This is the thing. I get that you want people to provide an ID so you can check their birth year and make sure that they're 18 years old. But can I just tell you, James Charles is 24-ish, I think. When I was 23, I had a conversation with my coworkers at the job that I was at. We were at a restaurant, and one of the waiters was cute, and they were like, oh, Hannah, do you have a crush on him? And I was like, I really don't feel comfortable dating anybody with teen in their age. And I was 23. He's 24. Let's not aim for the youngest possible. There's a difference between what's legal and what's moral. I take a lot of pause when I see that he's like trying to be on the young line. He has anybody in the world older than him or about like 5 to 6 years span younger than him that he's legally allowed to date. And he's like, how low can I go? How young can I get and have it still be legal? Like, let's not dance around that line. Why are we aiming young? Why are we so on the line that we are talking with a 17-year-old and thinking that they're 18? I just, I'm looking for the critical thinking. I'm looking for the maturity. I'm looking for the not only protecting himself, but protecting the other person. The other person can be harmed as well, not just James and his career and his brand and his reputation. And there's no concern for the other person. And so then the 17-year-old is the bad guy because the 17-year-old is lying about his age rather than James Charles being the bad guy because he's trying to date as young as possible. He said it on the Impulsive podcast in 2020 that he would like somebody as young as possible or somebody older who looks young. Like, come on, dude. More than anything, Charles seems focused on his goal, which is really to reclaim his spot in the cultural mainstream. And you're not allowed to. Thank you. I see a lot of people saying, oh my God, nothing even happened to him. He got away from this scot-free with no sort of repercussions, he says. That is so far from the truth. It certainly wasn't an overnight thing where now I'm slaying again. But he is trying hard. Trying what? Because he's not trying to change. He's just trying to get away with the same old shit. Eventually, he hired a PR firm to help. They were trying to get me into every single event and premiere and red carpet and show, and every single one of them was a no, he says. But ultimately, the gatekeepers? Yeah, the way that people gatekept Harvey Weinstein. The way that people gatekept Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, the gatekeepers. By some mysterious but increasingly common mixture of alchemy and time, softened. Charles started making significant appearances. The Grammys, the Scream 6 movie premiere, a Young Hollywood night hosted by Vanity Fair and TikTok. He also, I should note, appeared at a Cosmopolitan party in LA. That's not a flex. It's not a flex, Gabrielle. It's not a flex. We featured a porter at our party in LA. And now there's Painted, his biggest business swing yet. The first product, Create Paint, is a set of cream colors in 10 shades encased in tubes to look like art supplies. Designed for use on the eyes, face, and body, the paints are made from a wet lipstick-esque formula that dries matte, Charles explains. We're talking about painted. We're talking about makeup. Whether his efforts will be rewarded remains to be seen. For his part, Charles seems to believe in absolution, and not just for himself. Yeah, absolution comes when you repent and when you take steps to change. So we need that part to happen first. I wonder why he didn't publicly post a screenshot of that purported apology note he got. I also wonder, Gabrielle. Journalism. This is what I'm saying. This is what you should be doing. This is where you make your money. Wasn't he mad? Didn't he want to give his haters at least one big fat I told you so? Possibly. But if anyone knows what it feels like to have the full wrath of the internet bearing down on you, it's Charles. No, I mean, he knows how to send the full wrath of the internet onto other people, onto Adam McIntyre, onto Ariana Grande when Ariana Grande unfollowed him. He's the one with millions of fans. Maybe you missed this one, Gabrielle, but the whole power imbalance thing that we talked about, how you mentioned before, like, what if somebody with tens of millions of subscribers DM'd you? Wouldn't you respond? That's the power imbalance thing that we've been talking about this whole time. The full wrath of the internet, not that James Charles doesn't get hate, but he also has a ton of supporters and protectors. Why are we giving him this level of sympathy and excuses? Why is Cosmopolitan standing behind this predator? I don't get it. Everybody makes mistakes, everybody fucks up, he says. Don't get me wrong, I definitely don't think people should be able to do whatever they want and not be held responsible for it. It's important that people be held accountable, but I think it's important that we allow people to grow and to learn. Show me where you did then, because I don't see it. What I see is you trying to strategically get around some rules so you can keep doing what you've been doing. The idea that somebody fucks up and then their entire life and career and everything that they've ever worked for should be swept out from under their feet is just horrifying. No, I get that. But it also depends on the type of fuck up. Because if you fuck up in a way that hurts people, there are penalties for that. And especially if you don't really apologize and change your ways, despite what you think, James Charles. You are not entitled to a career on the internet. That is not a God-given birthright. That is not part of being a U.S. citizen. You are not entitled to all of the things that you think you are entitled to. You are not entitled to time and attention from these minors, from these straight men. You are not entitled to the internet's time and attention just for existing and being popular at one time before everybody found out what a creep you are. You do not deserve any of this. You earn it. The people who give it to you can also take it away from you. Your fans, the rest of the internet, YouTube itself, if they ever want to get in gear and shut you down. It is a gift. It is a privilege. It is at the whim of your supporters whether or not you succeed. And if they tell you no, move on to something else. When nobody buys your face paints or whatever, like, just move on to something else. You do not have a right to a millions of dollars career on the internet. You might need to start building up your resume and looking at other things. So be it. That's how careers go sometimes. Your civil rights are not being stripped from you. You still have your $7 million farmhouse. You'll be fine. These days, it feels like our culture at large, for better or for worse, is haltingly reaching the same conclusion. After all, don't the medium-canceled now walk among us? They shouldn't. This fall, while you perhaps wear a James Charles painted eyelid, I won't be, you may find yourself baking out of Alison Roman's new cookbook, never heard of her, following Tinks on your Instagram feed, also not sure of who that is, or thinking about reading Caroline Galloway's memoir. No idea. I will not be doing any of those things. In our own messy, imperfect way, maybe we're starting to calibrate our responses to the severity of an offender's offense. I'm sorry, what's more severe than sexual misconduct against minors? Gabrielle. I'm waiting. You're asking for proportionality while you are not being anywhere close to proportional in this article. Get a grip. Maybe we've arrived at the point where we're doling out appropriate levels of social censure. Obviously not. Or maybe we're just tired of keeping score and ready to succumb to the path of least resistance, letting our feeds figure it out for us. What? And that's it. And that's the end. That's the end of the article. I'm gonna cry. Gabrielle! What Somebody said her credentials are listed. I'm just going to take a quick look. Gabrielle Bluestone is a journalist, allegedly, and attorney from New York, whose writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, New York Magazine, and Gawker, among others. She's the Emmy-nominated executive producer of Netflix's Fire. I think that's about the Fire Fest. And the associate producer of Different Flowers, winner of the 2017 Kansas City Film Festival Prize. Her first book, Hype, was published in 2021. And I think this is the only article of hers that's on Cosmo, because it's the only one that's here. Hopefully she doesn't write any more. Hopefully she doesn't write any more anywhere, because this was bad. Like, I don't know how to write a more uninformed or purposefully obtuse article about James Charles than this one. This isn't about cancel culture. He's receiving a lenient response compared to what he did. And I'm shocked that anybody would try to spin that in some other direction than what it clearly is. My God. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that took a little longer than I thought it would, but like, wowie wow. All of her other articles are about scam artists and fraud, so I don't know why she's taking on this type of piece. See, that makes sense. This is very much outside her wheelhouse, it seems. Maybe that's why it sucks, because she doesn't know what the f she's talking about. He's actually collecting IDs? That's an identity theft risk. Thank you! Especially if he still pays his people who could access the info a pittance. Yeah, so you have just like a collection of people's IDs? Like, what are you? That's also not a good solution. And therein lies the problem. He thinks is about him. He doesn't have any cognition of anyone else. That's it. Is like he cannot see past the end of his own nose, and it's just blatantly, glaringly obvious. I just had a lot of thoughts about that article. The question of that article was meant to be a litmus test, right? I hope that they're getting the point here. This is not acceptable. First of all, this extremely biased coverage of this extremely delicate topic is not acceptable. I think Cosmopolitan should be ashamed of this coverage. They should retract this article because it's so bad and it's so inept and inadequate and just inaccurate. I think that Gabrielle really needs to stick to her wheelhouse if she seems to apparently focus more on scam artists and fraud and stuff. Like, that's important stuff too. I did my Logan Paul videos. That's very important stuff to talk about. Talk about what, do what you know. Do what you're good at. This is not it. She seems like not to necessarily be caught up on a lot of that. Definitely not internet. This is also like internet culture moves a little quicker than, I guess, like traditional media or other sources. So like you have to be like really kept up to date. Although again, like the last like thing that happened with James Charles was like 6 months ago. So you could research that stuff. You could watch my series. I think that this being a litmus test, it's failing the test, and James should not come back. Whatever kind of comeback he's trying to do, because he's been uploading, he's been posting. I think he hasn't been having as many views and everything as he wanted, but I think wherever he's at, he should be extremely grateful to have what he has right now. He's lucky to have what he has. What he's done is shameful. His current attitude is shameful. It's embarrassing. Somebody asked, has Cosmopolitan or the writer of the article been getting a lot of feedback or pushback? I think so, because it's been talked about a lot, at least on YouTube, and just saying, like, this is ridiculous. Different versions of what I'm doing, I guess. I would consider that a decent amount of pushback, I don't know if it's enough that they'll take it seriously. We'll see. Here's hoping. I think that's that on that. If this article was a litmus test on whether or not James Charles is still canceled, the answer is yes. James Charles is still canceled, and this article is canceling Cosmopolitan. Rather than bringing back James Charles, it's just canceling Gabrielle, whoever the fuck, and Cosmo. So, good job, guys. A+ job with that.